I think it's fair to say that the biggest talking point in the Rugby Championship this year has got to be how poorly the All Blacks are finishing their games. I don't have the answers, but certainly am going to have a bit of a look at each game the All Blacks have played this year and offer a few thoughts. It's a massive talking point here in New Zealand in particular, and a lot of people are calling out for change. So let's take a look at each game and see where we end up. So, first game of the season for the All Blacks was against England here in New Zealand, and typically the first game of the All Blacks season will be against a lesser team, shall we say, but England were pretty good. The score was 16-15, and the English played really, really well. Let's be fair, they had a chance to win that, but two All Blacks tries in the first half, both missed conversions, so the halftime score was 10-all. England scored a try in the 48th minute, and the All Blacks then after that scored two penalties, one in the 55th minute, one in the 65th minute. So one penalty was scored by the All Blacks in that final 20 minutes. And the All Blacks hung on for a win. Very, very tight win. There was a final penalty awarded to the All Blacks, which I guess the English might feel that was a contentious one, and it possibly was, depending on how you looked at it. But anyway, the All Blacks hang on for a win there. Won 3 points in the final 20 minutes, if we're specifically talking 20 minutes. England game 2, this was at Eden Park, which I went along for. All Blacks winning 24-17. There was one All Blacks try in the 11th minute, and then the All Blacks scored two penalty kicks, one at the 21st minute, one at the 38th minute, and the English scored two first half tries. So this halftime score was 13-14, and England were actually in the lead at that point. England penalty at 49 minutes, so the score was 17-13 to England. Mark Talia scored a try at the 61st minute, and the conversion was missed. However, the All Blacks did kick two penalties in the final 20 minutes, one at the 69th minute, one at the 75th minute. So 11 points the All Blacks scored in the final 20 minutes of that game, and it was the All Blacks comfortably their best final 20-minute performance this year so far. But really, it took a massive effort and amazing sort of, one of those moments and performances that you look back on with memory, that stick in your memory by Beauden Barrett. He played unbelievable. When I was at the ground, I just couldn't see the All Blacks turning things around. They really looked like they were going to struggle to come back and win that game. And England still had a final final chance or opportunity to win that game as well. So it did come down to the wire, even though there was 7 points in it at the end. So 11 points in the final 20 minutes of that game. Fiji and San Diego, 47-5. Doesn't really count in the scheme of things. There was 3 unanswered tries in the second half to the All Blacks, 2 in that last sort of 20-minute period, so 14 points. But let's just discount that for the sake of the argument. And this is where the Rugby Championship is where really things started to change for the All Blacks. Let's just say the rot settled in. But anyway, 20-15 at halftime to the All Blacks against Argentina. It was 30-25 to the All Blacks at one point, both teams scoring 10 points sort of in that second half, sort of backwards and forwards. 13 points to Argentina from the 56th minute. And they took that win. So yeah, All Blacks were at 30 at that point. So the Argentina had to come from behind, and they scored 13 points in the last sort of 24 minutes. The last All Blacks score was a converted try in the 53rd minute, and they didn't score after that. So yeah, for the final 27 minutes. Argentina game 2, quite the turnaround, but it's certainly a result. 42-10, a win to the All Blacks. Of course, the All Blacks losing against Argentina in game 1, but an unbelievable start in that game at Eden Park. It was very, very wet. I was at that game as well. The All Blacks scored 5 first half tries. The score was 35-3 at half time to the All Blacks, of course. All Blacks scored a try straight after halftime through Will Jordan. I think it was about so the 43rd minute was the last score to the All Blacks. Argentina scored in the 71st minute, so the All Blacks defence was very, very good. A yellow card to Amor at the 76th minute. So a little bit of ill-discipline there, but it wasn't at a pivotal moment, and the All Blacks, I must admit, a wet game again, but and the conditions sort of represented that second half performance across both teams, but the All Blacks' defence was pretty good. And you didn't. They weren't feeling threatened in terms of that score at all. South Africa game 1 in South Africa, 11-12 at half time. The All Blacks had the lead by 1 point. The All Blacks scored 2 tries in the first half. And look, you just felt the All Blacks were playing pretty good. I think they played better than a lot of people expected. 27. The All Blacks were on 27 at the 53rd minute. So the score was 27-17 at that point when the All Blacks scored their last point in that game in the 53rd minute. The All Blacks had a yellow card, Tonga Fasi, poor discipline. That was at the 68th minute, and quite a pivotal time because the Springboks scored 2 converted tries in that final 10 minutes while the All Blacks were at disadvantage player number-wise. The reserve for South Africa, really worth pointing out, they did an absolute demolition job in that second half. Of course, they had the extra man late in that game, but the All Blacks' discipline was very average, below average, and a 10-point lead in a close test match should have been enough. So the All Blacks, there was a lot going on there. Poor decision making, penalties in key moments, and South Africa just had that momentum, had that confidence, knew what they were doing, and I would also say that this was probably the best sort of closeout of a game that South Africa's done, possibly this year, but they were certainly on top of their game and took the opportunities. South Africa took the opportunities when they were available. South Africa game 2, 18-12 was the loss. Just recapping that game 1, the South Africa won 31-27, so 4 points in it. I think I've got that right. But anyway, so South Africa game 2, 18-12. All Blacks lost this one, of course. The score was 3-9 at half-time. Look, I think it's worth noting, though, that first half, the All Blacks had more of the play, and they missed a couple of try-scoring opportunities in particular. They got a couple of penalties, of course, don't get me wrong, but certainly missed some try-scoring opportunities, which really would have set them up, the All Blacks up a lot better. But South Africa, to their credit, obviously held on, got some key turnovers. Both teams had a yellow card each in the first half. 15-3 was the second half score, so South Africa completely dominating that. The All Blacks only managing to score 3 points, no tries for the All Blacks in the whole game. Yellow card to each team in the second half as well, but while South Africa were a man down, the All Blacks couldn't capitalise on that, and the last All Blacks score was in that 59th minute, which was that penalty, and no score in the final 20. All Blacks missed 3 penalties in that second half, which, that's a big difference. I think one of them in particular was very, very key, which I'll touch on in a moment. Tyrell Lomax, he was yellow carded in the 73rd minute. He sort of leaned in when Cheslin Colby was chasing through and took him out of play. Malcolm Marx scored a minute or 2 after that, and that was a really, really key moment. The All Blacks kicking, though, I just remember it late in that second half. Their kicking was poor, their option taking was poor, their execution for kicking anything they were doing was poor. They were poor under the high ball. South Africa completely dominating that area, and the All Blacks were still putting up contestable kicks late in that game. But the All Blacks just looked lost, didn't they? I made a video on that, but the All Blacks just didn't know what they were doing, looked completely lost. However, 12-13 was the score. The All Blacks were, what were they? They were at 12 points. They were 1 point behind South Africa at the 72nd minute, and Damian McKenzie missed that kick. So it could have been a little bit different if the All Blacks had just squeaked their nose ahead. However, the All Blacks didn't score in the last 20 minutes. It's as simple as that. Australia game 1, this was just last week. All Blacks winning 28-31 in Sydney. The halftime score was 14-28 at halftime. What a hell of a first half. Ardie Savea's try, which was the 4th All Blacks try, was scored in the 25th minute. The first Australian try was against the run of play off the line-out move, but otherwise the All Blacks were very dominant, and Australia Well, I just wanted to recap. I don't know if anyone else put this together, but in that first half, I remember thinking, man, the Australians have leaked a ton of points here in the second half against Argentina and the first half against the All Blacks, and it was a total of 78 points. The second half against Argentina, the Australia leaked 50 points, so if it was 28 points to the All Blacks at halftime, 78 points in 80 minutes of rugby. So the Australia did really well to sort of get out of that. The All Blacks kicked a penalty goal at the 45th minute, and that was their final score of the game. Yellow cards to the All Blacks were really, really key last week. One at the 66th minute, one at the 73rd minute, which means the All Blacks were down to 13 men for 4 minutes. The Paisami try for the Wallabies was at the 66th minute. I don't know what your take on this, but I think the try was scored and then the referee went back to award a yellow card. I can't remember now. That might be wrong. But anyway, Australia scored a try in the 79th minute, but there was still time to play. Being 3 points behind, Australia still had a chance to win. But 55 minutes, the All Blacks scored 3 points and no score beyond that. So for the last 35 minutes there, the the second half score was 14-13 to Australia. But if you go back to the 25th minute, when Adi Savia scored, Australia were 21-3 for that last 55 minutes. Yellow cards, look, I'll just point out the Caleb Clark one. Yeah, I wouldn't blame him personally. I just think the whole team was just playing out of sorts a little bit, and that was just an example of panic being settling in. So the All Blacks haven't scored a point in the final 20 minutes of this whole Rugby Championship. That's 5 games, 100 minutes of rugby, no points. And against England in the first 2 games of the season, the All Blacks scored 14 points, worth noting. But again, one game was just a bit of a standout performance by Beauden Barrett. So ill-discipline really stands out to me. 6 yellow cards in the last 4 games in particular. Before that, I think the yellow card side of things wasn't too bad, but just yellow cards have been at crucial times in games as well, and also penalties. But you got to also take a step back and look at the positives from an All Blacks point of view. Very impressive periods of games. So if we go back, there's sort of 4 key periods of games that sort of stand out to me. The first half of the Argentina game 2 at Eden Park, that was just awesome, 5 tries. The first 50 minutes against South Africa in game 1, that was pretty impressive, but I think 53rd minute was when the All Blacks stopped scoring points and stopped playing the game. The first half against South Africa in game 2, 9-3 to the All Blacks, but they just couldn't convert a try or a penalty into a try. And that first half against Australia last week, just on the weekend just gone, was very, very impressive as well. Certainly the first 25 minutes anyway. Tactics, could you look at coaching and just, how they plan to play the game? I think it's more of poor execution, making bad decisions at the wrong times, a lack of options. So if you look specifically against South Africa in the last 20 minutes of each of those 2 games, or even more than 20 minutes, the All Blacks were running out of options because South Africa weren't giving them anything to work with. And kicking has just been poor. And we know when All Blacks are trying to close out games, the one game that does keep standing out to me, and you talk about kicking, well, the Eden Park game against England was where the kicking for that first, until Beauden Barrett came out for the first sort of 60 minutes, the All Blacks couldn't get out of their half. Barrett came on, new energy, and it just clicked, and he was able to get some territory for the All Blacks. Look, I think from a tactics point of view, they need to simplify the game and go back to basics in that final half. Captaincy, look, Scott Barrett's pretty new as a captain at this level. He's still trying to find his feet. You can tell in certain games and times in those second halves where he's just lost for words, doesn't have any answers. He's not quite sort of getting, the guys together and just sort of saying, all right, well, let's, take it easy. Let's just stick to the basics and whatever. But there's so much experience around him with guys like Cody Taylor, Adi Savia, Sam Cane, of course, has been playing the last few weeks. Beauden Barrett's been in the mix starting or off the bench. TJ Perenara, of course, but you've got plenty of experience around as well, but they're just not sort of able to sort of shift their mindset. Bench players, you look at South Africa and how they manage and operate with their bench players. Rassie is pretty unorthodox coach. He must have a bit of a plan of what he's going to do, so in terms of when players are coming on and off or whatever. So he's probably premeditated, but he is not afraid to make a call when it matters. If something's not quite going the way that he would like to go, or a player's maybe not just as sharp as they normally might be, he'll make that tough call, and it'll happen early. So going back to the All Blacks bench players, there has been quite a lack of experience as well, although it has been offset at times with Beauden Barrett, with TJ Perenara on the bench. You've got Anton Leonard-Brown, who's played almost 80 odd tests now, but you look at Beauden against England in that game too, where he was just amazing coming on, and he hit the ground running and knew what to do. Experience helps coming off the bench. But certainly the majority of experience or lack of experience on the bench is telling. But I think you need to bring guys on earlier. If you do take a look at the South Africa example again, those players are coming on, some of them from 45 minutes. I think momentum's really important. So if you look at the game one, All Blacks versus South Africa, All Blacks had the momentum right up to that 53rd minute, but they held off the reserves coming on. South Africa brought theirs on early and shifted that momentum, and when the guys came on for the All Blacks, the momentum was gone and they had to try and bring it back, and it was just a bit too tall an order, for a lack of better phrase. So but the All Blacks have tried different things. So South Africa game 2, some players, I think one or two bench players didn't even get on the field. Fletcher Newell came on for a little bit right at the end, but Sam Derry didn't get on the field at all. Some of the players came on much later. So, the All Blacks definitely tried different things. So there's a few things not working, but I'd probably try reserves coming on earlier. But that's just my take on it. But I just think I would put it all down to this being a mental challenge at the moment, a mental block, and it's probably getting worse. But if you look at it from a mental block point of view, the discipline and some of the uncharacteristic errors and penalties, yellow cards, that is a sign of getting your mental space right. So that's just my take on that. And also that poor decision making. That's the panic, and it's making bad decisions. So that's how I would sort of sum it up. Really, I think the All Blacks need to keep it simple. They need to try and score points consistently, and just as simple as all right, this game, get the guys together. All right, we're going to try. This is what we're going to do. Bang, bang, bang. We just want to get some points. I don't care how we get some points. Let's just get some points in the last 20 minutes of a game. They need to defend well too and get a bit of confidence out of that, because even the defence is looking ragged and unstructured and panicked as well. There is enough experience in the team, and I don't think it's the personnel. I don't think changing things is the right move to make at the moment. You can also look at it from a point of view where the All Blacks haven't had the luxury of being able to make a lot of changes, give young guys starts and the like, because there's really only been one game that has been considered, I guess, a slightly easier challenge, which was the Fiji game. So a few guys got a bit of a run, but the England series was exceptionally close. The South Africa series, well, they were both losses, so the All Blacks had to put their best teams out there. In Australia Argentina lost 1-1, but then Australia last week, well, that was a lot closer than people expected. I mean, the All Blacks had to put their best team out there to try and get a bit of confidence and a bit of momentum, if you will. But certainly, because it was so close, I think tomorrow I would be expecting the All Blacks to keep a pretty consistent team. And, the other sort of final comment I'll leave you with is that the total differential against South Africa across 2 games in South Africa against the world champions. Look, there's so many things to take into account from a South Africa point of view. They made plenty of changes between the 2 games, and plenty of changes for that first game from the game before against Argentina. Well, no, it wasn't Argentina, but against Ireland. But, you know, 8 points across 2 games, or 8 or 9 points across 2 games. It was closer than what a lot of people expected, but it's not enough to say, you know, the All Blacks are in so much trouble right now. We need to change everything, change the coach, and whatever. So I think they just need to keep chipping away. Also, there's been a lot of talk here in New Zealand about some things happening in the background there, with player discomfort. Coaches, of course, Liam McDonald's left. Look, I don't know. Who knows? We'll find out at some point. But the reality is, I think they just need to, you know, keep going down the path they're going. It'll click at some point, and if it does, and the All Blacks are able to play extended periods of what they have done in some of those key moments I mentioned earlier, then you know, look out for the other teams. They'll be very hard to beat at that point. So if you have watched this till now, thank you and well done. It's my wife's birthday today, so I'm already in a bit of trouble for making this video, but hope you enjoyed. Cheers.